Just like when creating a user model, there was a number of different ways to do it with Django. The simplest way was to use the basic built-in Django user model, but I don't think that it's very practical in pretty much any situation, so we built a custom one. Because we built a custom user model, we also have to build custom registration or custom registration forms. So that's what we're going to work on in this video. So by the end of this video, we will be able to register users from the website itself. Okay, so let's go into our account app, and I'm going to create a new file inside of account, and this is going to be called forms.py. Typically, this is where you can create forms files inside of any apps, and you put forms that are going to be unique to that particular app. So from Django import forms is what we need first, and then from Django.contrib.auth.forms, so getting some kind of an auth form, import UserCreationForm. So this is a built-in class that comes with Django in the Django contrib auth forms pack, I guess you would call it package, and it helps you to build a form for authenticating users. We also need our account model. So from account.models import account. Oh, it automatically changed it to a lowercase. Now let's build that form class. So class registration form, I want to pass the user creation form. It's going to have an email parameter. So email equals forms.email field. Max length equals 2. Actually, the max length for our email, I think I made 60 characters. If I take a look at did I give it a max length? Yeah, max length is 60 characters. So let's give it a max length of 60. Help text. This is going to be whatever text, some text that's displayed next to the email field. I'm going to write required, add a valid email address. Now I want to do class meta and set the model equals account. So I'm telling the registration form what sort of data it's going to be modeling, or what the form needs to look like. So it's going to have all of the required fields inside of the model, which is going to be the email and the username. And then of course it will need a password also. So then I set the fields down here. So fields equals email, username, password 1, and then password 2 will be confirming that first password. So making sure that the passwords aren't different. And that's going to be our registration form. So pressing Control S, and next is building the view for registration. So I'm going into the Accounts app, going into Views, and let's import a bunch of stuff. So first of all, we need render. We'll also need redirect, which you haven't seen yet, but you'll see that in just a moment here. Now from Django.contrib.auth import login and authenticate. You can check out the Django docs if you want to learn more about what I'm doing here, but I'm going to show you everything you need to do in this video. Basically though, in a nutshell, when you log in a user or when you register a user, you have to first authenticate them, which checks their credentials, and then logging in actually signs them into the website. So from account.forms, so I'm going to be referencing our form that we just created, import registration form, which is this one right here. So I'm importing that form, and now I'm creating a view. So registration view is what I'll call it. It'll take the request, context. We always need a context, or almost always need a context. Now, if the request is a post request, so if request is a post request, I want to set the form. So form equals registration form. I want to pass the request. Then I want to check if the form is, this needs to be form. If the form is valid, so basically if there are no errors, if the user entered the correct username, the correct email, the passwords match, all that stuff, if there's no issues with what they did, that would mean the form is valid. And if the form is valid, then we want to save. And then I can get the email, so I can do form.cleaned data. This is the way you get data from a valid form. You reference the form, you write cleaned data, and then you want to get the parameter. The parameter in this case is going to be email. I want to get the raw password. So raw password. I can just get the password number 1. And now I want to create that account. So account, or I want to authenticate the account. So I'm calling the authenticate method, and I'm going to pass the email and the password. So password equals password 1. So that will determine if the credentials are valid, basically, and it will authenticate that user and create that user object. Then once we have that user object, I can call login, pass the request, and pass the account, and that will log in the user, in which case we want to then redirect to the home screen. And you might be wondering about this. How can I just pass home here, and how does Django know to redirect to the home screen? Well, if you take a look at my site and go into URLs, we've given the home screen view a name of home. It doesn't matter what this was. If it was GDF, GHDF, I would write GDF, GHDF there. This is the name parameter. It makes us able to access I guess the URLs more easily using redirects, and also you can do this in templates, which you'll see later on. So otherwise, if the form is not valid, basically if there was some issues with their form, I want to pass that form to the template so I can display those errors. So I'm adding the form to the context. So now I'm coming down. If the request is not a post request, I need another else statement here. And so basically if it's not a post request, that means it's a get request and they're visiting the registration screen for the first time. So the thing that they want to see is they want to see the registration form without the post request being passed to it. So either way, I still want to add the registration form to the context. All right, so that should be it. Now I want to return render, which you should already be familiar with. I want to return the request. I want to reference the template. So it's going to be this register.html view and pass the context. Now, of course, we haven't built this HTML file yet, but that's what we're going to be doing next. So quickly, I just want to kind of, actually, you know what? I'll build the HTML file and then I'll come back and I'll go through this logic again. But basically, probably what you're confused about is the request post, and then, so this would be a get request here. You might be confused about that, so I'll come back and I'll talk about that later. So next, let's build the HTML file. So I'm right-clicking on the account app, going to new folder, creating templates, inside templates, creating another new folder named account, and then inside of account, I'm creating a new file, and this is going to be register.html. And just like the other HTML files that we have created, so if I go into personal and I go into home, I need to extend by the base and then add block content. So I'm pasting that in, and then I'm end block content, just like we've done before. So I don't need this anymore. I can close this. So now what goes inside of our register.html file? Well, first of all, I need a heading. So I'll just give it a heading of register. And then I need to create a form. So form, close that off. I need to specify a method for the form. So basically, if the user clicks the button on the form, which I'm going to add down here, what method do I want to execute? Do I want to do a get request? Do I want to do a post request? Do I want to do a delete? Well, no, I want to do a post request because as you saw in the view, we're looking for a post request. So that's why I'm adding a post there. So now I need to add a button for executing that post request. I'm going to give it some text of register, and inside the button I can set a type to submit. And what all that's doing is it's telling the template when they click the button, execute the submit and do the method that the form is specifying. So now I need to add a Django thing here. This is something called the CSRF token. You need to add these to any of your forms in your templates if you want them to work properly. Basically, it's an encryption token. It's like if you stay on a page for too long, or if you like refresh a form, the CSRF token will expire. So it's a security thing, and you always need to pass it to the form, or else the Django form will not work correctly. So usually I just add it up there right next to where the form is opened. So now I want to build this form. So for field, because this form is going to have different fields, it's going to have an email field, a username field, and 2 password fields. So I'm doing for field in registration form, which is what I'm passing to the context. So remember, if you go to the view, we have this registration form. So I'm accessing that registration form, and I need to end the loop. And there's an extra bracket there. So now inside this loop, looping through the different fields, what do I want to happen? Well, I'm going to add a p tag, and then inside the p tag, I'm going to write field dot label underscore tag. So that's the name of the field. So one name of the field would be email, another's username, another's password, and then another one's the second password. And then I want to print out the actual field itself. Next, below that, I want to do if the field has any help text. So if you remember, inside of the form, we added some help text, which I'll show you in just a second. So end if we go to the form, remember we added some help text to the email field. So there's going to be that would be displaying this kind of message right here. So if there is help text, I want to display that help text. So I'm just going to write small, and then inside here, give it some style, color gray. I think that's how you spell gray. And then I want to display that help text. So help, or I guess field help text. So that would display any help text for any particular field. The last thing is the errors. So I want to loop through any potential errors. And this is going to seem confusing to you, but I'll explain it as soon as I type it out. So for error in field.errors, and I want to end the loop, end the for, I want to copy this small thing here. This is going to be a color of red, and I want to change this to a P. So let's see here. I want to print that error. So how does the form know that there's errors? I'm sure you're wondering. Well, like I said, if you do a post request, it checks if the form is valid. If the form is not valid, it still adds the form to the context. And at that point, if the form isn't valid, it's going to have errors. So at that point, you would get some errors displayed. So I think that's actually all we need to do for the template. The last part is the URLs file. So we need to add this new registration view to our URLs. So from account.views, import, I want to import the registration view, comma, and I want to add that here and add this to register / and this will be register. And that should be good. So let's go to our project and refresh, and I get an error because the server isn't running. And also actually, I just need to run the server. That should be it. So run the server, go to our project. Looks like there's still an error. Cannot import question from personal models. I thought I deleted that. Is that in the, let's see, admin? It's not there. Right here is where it is. So I need to, I changed that in the previous video. It looks like I mixed up the source code. So I want to delete that. And this is actually from account.models import account. This is going to be accounts, account. Okay, let's refresh. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the register screen, and here's our form. So we have that H2 tag that says register. We have the email, username, password, and the confirmation password. This is the help text. This is all help text. That's also help text. And so let's fill out the form. Let's try and register a user. So let's go test@gmail.com. Give them a username of test. I'm going to enter 2 passwords that don't match, and now we expect to see some error. Yeah, so 2 password fields didn't match. So that's what I was talking about with the error text. So if I go into views, if the request is post, which it was, it gets the form. It checks if the form is valid, which it wasn't because the passwords didn't match. So then it still adds the form, and then we can display the errors through this right here. So that's kind of it. Let's actually fill this out for real. So I'm going to give it a password that actually should work. 1 2 3 4. Password 1 2 3 4. And password 1 is not defined. Oh, so I passed the wrong parameter here. That needs to be raw password. Okay, I'm saving that. Going back to register, I'm going to revisit the URL. Let's go test@gmail.com. Username of test, password, and password, enter. It says account with that email already exists. Okay, let's try a different one, testing. I'll just do some random text. I think I accidentally already added that when I was testing. So no reverse for home found. That shouldn't be happening. So let's see, let's go. It says no reverse for home found, but if I go to URLs, oh, I gave it a name of name. This should be home. All right, so now it should be good. Let's go back. Let's revisit this. Try another random email, because it if it got that far in the code, that means that it actually did create the account. It just didn't redirect properly. Try that again. And there we go. So now we're registered. So we have that first one that I registered, the second one which didn't redirect properly, and then there's the third one. And if I was to log into the admin, so password, and go to accounts, there's all those accounts that I have just registered. All right, so now we have the ability to register new users from the website itself, but there's still a lot of work to do. Number one is, how do I know if a user is currently authenticated? So if I go to the home screen, there's nothing here that tells me if I'm authenticated, if I'm not authenticated, and also there's no way to even get to the registration screen. There's no links, there's no anything. And the third thing is, how can I log out? If I know that I'm authenticated, then I should be able to log out. And if I don't know that I'm not, or if I know that I'm not authenticated, I should be able to register or go to the registration screen. So there's a couple of things we still need to do, and I'm gonna start working on those in the next video.